So thank you again, ROADSEC, for having me again. I guess I didn't screw up too bad last time because I was re-invited. Again, I apologize. I don't speak Portuguese, but I did know some of the things you were saying about me. So. Anyway, so this talk is, sorry, I'll try to tone down the New York accent. But this talk is obviously titled Mistakes Were Made. It's a talk about my experiences in all the time that I've worked in security, what I found really works to make a healthy security, work well in security. As a security person, running a security program, and then also what doesn't. How do I go? Yeah. So this is the obligatory slide about why you might be interested in what I have to say about this subject area. I've been working in security for about 15 or 16 years. At this point, I've kind of stopped keeping track. But I've worked in a lot of different security spaces and a lot of different industries. So when I first started out, I was actually working for the US military. We'll try to keep American politics out of this. Doing vulnerability research, finding ODAs for the government, essentially. Then I sort of pivoted into the financial space, first kind of bridging the gap between the US government and finance by working for, I don't know how many people here are familiar with the Federal Reserve Bank, but it's sort of the organization that tries to make the economy not go into the toilet. Doing a lot of application security, a lot of advisory, a lot of, letting people know the best way to do things to make sure that our economy isn't being destroyed by bad people. After that, I decided I wanted to make some coin, make some money, get that paper. So I worked for first NASDAQ, which is one of the main stock exchanges in the U.S., and they also have stock exchanges in other parts of the country as well. Again, I doing application security, but I was also the lead of the security program there. So I was doing a lot of running around telling people, we don't want the stock exchange to crash. How can we prevent that from happening? For a brief while, I worked for a actual bank. I'm sure you have Citibank. Do you have Citibank in Brazil? Yeah, okay. They're everywhere. You can't avoid them. Mostly making sure that their ATMs and such weren't getting broken into, but again, that same sort of guidance in terms of looking at how they were building things, figuring out what were the best recommendations in terms of you can't be running a really, really old version of they didn't have OpenSSL there, but please don't run a really old version of IIS on your systems, so on and so forth. And I'll get a little bit more into this. Sorry. But then I decided I kind of wanted to shift gears, and that's kind of how I landed in sort of this startup SE space. So after I left Citibank, I started working for Tumblr. I apologize. It's not my fault they took the adult content off of Tumblr. Okay, that happened a long time after I left, and I don't agree with that decision. So I'm just going to lay that out there. But at Tumblr, I was more of a security engineer, like hands on the keyboard, writing code. One of the big things we did was make sure that every single part of Tumblr was being served over HTTPS or TLS. to protect the user environment, to protect the users. A lot of stuff, since Tumblr is a platform that's being consumed not just in the US, but all over the world, you can imagine if you're in a country that maybe looks down on female presenting nipples, I don't know. People could have their privacy invaded. And so one of the big things we did was get, so at Tumblr, when you see your dashboard, it's basically like, okay, here's, you know, all of the dank memes that I'm looking at, okay, pictures of cats, pictures of, I don't know, Pepe, cool videos and whatnot, but then everyone has their own private sites, and the dashboard was protected against, or was served over an encrypted communication, but people's private sites, if you went to aloria.tumblr.com, it wasn't. And so I led a big initiative there to make sure that every single aspect of Tumblr was being served over a secure site. After that, I decided to shift tracks a little bit. I still went to work for a startup, but it was called Flatiron Health. And Flatiron Health is a company that tries to aggregate and consume and provide people who want to do research on cancer with a lot of data that people would normally not be able to get access to. So they're taking information from doctors about, let's say, okay, I did this sort of treatment, I gave them this kind of drugs, I gave them this kind of chemotherapy, I did these kinds of surgeries, here's what's worked, here's what didn't, here's information about what these people do in terms of, okay, did they have any pre-existing health conditions that might have contributed to their problems? As you can imagine, that's a very, very important set of data to need to protect. Cancer is a very sensitive thing. You don't want that one falling into the wrong hands because people are not going to have a lot of confidence in you if you're letting the world know, oh my gosh, this person has leukemia or breast cancer or whatever, but also, and this actually kind of ties back into Citibank and NASDAQ and all the financial stuff, is that there's a lot of regulatory stuff that also ties into this. Not just sort of the ethical or the moral implication of we should protect this data because people are trusting us with it, or we have a responsibility to do so, but also if we violate a law that tells us that we have to protect things in a certain way, that could actually bankrupt a smaller company. Or you don't want to be, in the terms of a financial company, you don't want to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal because somebody forgot to close a port on the firewall, or has SQL injection, or let's not just talk about what classes yet. So then I pivoted into something that I guess is a little bit more in line with Tumblr, but I went to work for Spotify. And I guess the reason that I have this slide is also the fact that I want to highlight the fact that there are a lot of different threat models, risks, associated risks, and things that you need to be worried about in all these organizations. So Spotify, okay. How many people here use Spotify? Everyone? Yep. Brazil is actually one of our most enthusiastic, what I found out, consumers, and that's awesome. Thank you for raising my stock prices. You can think that looking at Citibank, NASDAQ, the Fed, the military, you can say, okay, security is really scary if there's a breach there, right? You could screw up the economy, you could screw up the way people make money. In the case of the military, you could put people who are maybe fighting a war at risk. With Spotify, people might not think. People might be like, oh, what's the big deal? But there's a lot of different people we need to protect. Can you imagine how embarrassing it would be, and I'm not going to name a particular artist, but think about your favorite artist, and imagine how embarrassing it would be for them if their album that was like super hyped up, like everyone's waiting for it, got leaked. Or if somebody broke into their account and uploaded a track that was super offensive and had just completely made them look bad. Or maybe somebody changes their album icon to a picture of somebody's butt. I don't know. Like, people are not going to want to be an artist on the Spotify platform if we don't make them confident that they can trust us with the stuff that they want to keep secret. The other side of it is the consumer. And this is true for a lot of, and I'm just using the places that I worked at as specific examples, but this is true of a lot of places. Why would I use Spotify if I feel like somebody is going to be constantly, hacking into my account, I have to reset my password? There actually is, you can imagine, a lot of people want stuff for free. Premium accounts are really, really attractive things that people want, and a lot of people don't want to pay that. I forget what the price of it is, sorry, I get my Spotify Premium for free. But people don't want to pay that 20, 15, 20, whatever it is, dollars. There's actually a black market for getting Spotify Premium accounts and reselling them. So, and that's just looking at the risks to the users and the risks to the consumers. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other threats, but I guess the point that I wanted to make with the slide is I've been in all of these different scenarios where there's a lot of different things to worry about, and I've noticed trends. I've noticed, I think a lot of the question that comes on, and if you're a big follower of InfoSec Twitter, you've probably seen this as well, is people are still scratching their heads and wondering, why don't people take security more seriously? Why aren't people, what are we doing wrong to make security something that people don't want to participate in, something that people don't want to interact with? And that's why I'm having this talk. I'm going to give 4 examples of where I've seen a common thread of how people in different organizations, not people, I should say, security programs do things that make people not receptive and not able to do security efficiently. The mistake number 1, and actually this is a really great timing for this particular slide, because I saw yesterday that somebody did a poll, I don't know if it was RSA or some other security conference, where somebody posted an article that said that security people were more comfortable walking into a bathroom, a public bathroom with no socks or shoes on, than using public Wi-Fi. And you can understand the reaction to that, right? It's like you're a security practitioner and you're not comfortable using public Wi-Fi, like you don't know how to use a VPN and install patches and stuff and lock down your stuff. But the culture of paranoia is a really big thing. I don't know if Brazil you have, there's 2 kind of things that we use in America. One is the Chicken Little, the sky is falling kind of thing, or the boy that cries wolf. But when you make everything an emergency, and when you make everything seem like, holy crap, everything's on fire, you need to react to this right away, people get overwhelmed. People kind of feel like almost desensitized to the fact that, the things that you're raising are important. So really, and we'll get to how to overcome that stuff. But the culture of paranoia where everything is an emergency, that means nothing's an emergency. I'm sure that there are some people in this room who have been in buildings where the fire alarm's constantly going off because they're testing it, and you're like, yeah, it's probably another fire drill. But when there's actually a fire, okay, now you're dead. Sorry, that was dark. Go. Mistake number 2 that I see is sort of this mall cop mentality. I don't know if anybody's actually watched this movie. I've never watched it, but it came up when we were going to church. But the sort of, everyone wants to seem cool, right? Like there's this attitude of, we're all really proud. Being a hacker is cool. It's awesome that you can find, manipulate a system and make it do things that you don't want to do. But this mentality of, one, the gotcha, of, I found a problem, pwned, noob, doesn't make people like you. It doesn't really make people receptive to what you want them to make them want to cooperate with you. The other thing is that when you walk into the room, they should look at you as somebody who wants to help, not somebody who's going to yell at you. And that's a lot of times I see that sort of perspective with security culture in a lot of organizations where you come in and you're like, oh God, security's here, I'm in trouble, I'm stressed out, I don't like it. Again, it's not making people want to cooperate with you, it's not going to make people listen to you, and it's not going to make people want to come to you if they need help for something. So mistake number 3, and this is sort of 2-tiered, is lack of transparency. I think in a lot of organizations, a lot of security companies, people don't really know what security actually does. It's sort of almost like a black box where they say, hey, I built this thing, you look at it, they come back with you with a list of stuff to fix, and you don't really know why that happens. You don't really know what the sort of rationale is behind that. The other thing is sort of, how do I engage with security? When should I engage with security? What things can security offer me so that I can make my stuff better? A lot of times it's just, oh yeah, we're security. Give us a request, we'll review it, we'll tell you if it's good or if it's bad, and send you on your way. I think this is a really big one, and this is one of the things that I think makes people avoidant for participating in security, is they see it as something that holds them back. They see it as something that takes them more time. And that kind of ties into the previous slide where, okay, I gave you a review, you say these things are bad, but I go back and fix them, I send it to you again, you go back and tell me some other things are bad. You don't really understand, you're basically, especially if you're working in a rapid-paced environment, something that you thought would take you 2 weeks maybe takes a month now. Nobody likes that. It's going to make you frustrated, and also you're basically kind of being like, hey, your baby's ugly. All right, well, I gave it a new onesie and I put a bow on its head. Yeah, but I don't like those shoes. No, just security should not be holding back your organization from doing stuff, because if it is, then people, one, are probably just going to try to work around you. There's this adage, it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission, and I feel like when security is seen as a bottleneck, a lot of times this is what occurs. So what are some ways to get around these things that make people not want to deal with us? What makes people think that security is either a bunch of jerks or holding us back, or just something that they don't even comprehend? The first one, and this ties into the culture of paranoia, is be honest about what people should be scared about and the weight of that scare, right? Like, I went down the street today, I needed cash because I wanted to buy a caprino. I probably pronounced that wrong. So I used a public ATM. A lot of people would be like, oh no, don't use a public ATM, you're gonna get all your stuff stolen, there's gonna be carding. But the reward for me from using a public ATM was higher than the risk of getting my debit card skids, whatever the heck you call that. Understand that if people understand their threats, then they know how to behave properly to them. They know how to respond better, and they're not constantly scared. They're not like in this constant state of, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to move. They can actually action on what, and know, okay, maybe the risk is worth the reward in this situation, or maybe the threat is really, really bad, and I can't do this. This is the one that kind of tells me the mocap thing. Be somebody that they can look to ask questions to. Don't be someone who's just going around being like, no, I'm sorry, you're dumb. What the heck? Why are you doing it like that? Are you serious? You're not using parameterized queries? What the heck is wrong with you? Be a friend. Be someone that if they don't know the answer, it's okay for you to ask. Be someone who, when you're working on reviewing whatever they are working on, you can basically sit down with them and say, hey, tell me why you decided to do it that way, rather than being like, why did you do it that way? Also, just have everything documented. Like, if you have, at a lot of places, we either have like a Confluence page, a wiki. I know a lot of people are using self-hosted Stack Overflows. Have places where people can actually look up stuff and understand, you know, like take action for themselves. I mean, we're not the only people who like to sit down and figure things out for themselves. I bet that a lot of developers, a lot of architects have the same sort of mentality. If you, instead of being like going to mom or dad and being like, can I have a cookie? Or mom and dad, can I go to the park? If they can look and see, oh, okay, that's a good way to do things, I'll do that, they're gonna feel more empowered. They're not gonna feel paranoid or scared or anxious that you're gonna come after them and yell at them, because they'll have some sort of self-control and some sort of, again, education and empowerment, so that they can say, here's the thing that told me to do it this way, that's why I did this way. This also saves us a lot of time too, or it saves a lot, not a lot, maybe not a lot of time, but it also, like, this is great for us as security, because you don't get people, well, nobody told me not to do it that way. So great, you can say, well, yeah, we did. It's right there. Win-win for both of us. The other thing, and this kind of ties back into the last two slides, is if you can build out your security program so that people can take ownership of their own security, then that makes things, it's going to, save you all a lot of work as security people, but it's also going to make them feel like security is not a bottleneck. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of different things you can do, and it's not just having good documentation. How about give them some source code scanners that can find some low-hanging fruit vulnerabilities, so that they, when they actually do ask you to do a code review, you're not finding a bunch of really easy to fix stuff, but you're finding the more serious, more permanent problems. Maybe have a way to scan their configurations in AWS, GCP, whatever you're using, even bare metal, to say, hey, I noticed that you haven't updated your what particular third-party plugin, or you haven't configured your server properly, or maybe your firewall rules look a little wonky. If people can action on their own security and then come to you after and say, hey, I noticed there was a problem, is this okay? It saves us work, and it makes them feel like they're not just asking you for every little thing. It makes it more of a, not security's here and they're here and they're like, oh please Papa, can I have cookie today, Papa? It's more like an equal relationship.
So I think I have like 5 minutes left, but so I kind of breezed through this. The one thing that I wanted to also say is that there is never going to be one size fits all approach to security. Depending on where you work, depending on the things you need to be worried about, you may need to be a little bit more strict, or sometimes you can be a little bit more flexible. If you are subject to things like Sarbanes-Oxley, GCP, HIPAA, then yeah, you're really going to have to put your foot down, because that means that either the law is going to come after you, or you're going to get sued, or you're just going to get really bad news in the press, and nobody wants to have to deal with that. So again, you know, your mileage may vary. The other thing is you need to adapt to your organization's working style. Where I work now, it's very rapid. There's a culture that allows people to fail quickly and then recover quickly. Places where it's a stock exchange or a bank, it's probably not going to work. You really need to find a way to kind of implement the fundamentals of, let's make security a helping organization, not a organization, within the parameters of what's going to be well received within your organization's culture and the way they do things. And this is sort of repetitive, but security is better received when you present yourself as, hey, I want to help you learn. I want to help you learn how to make things better. I want to make it so that when you code something, I'm not coming back to you, or when you build out a server or deploy a firewall, I come back to you and I'm constantly telling you things to fix. I want you to have the knowledge in your brain so that you can get it right from the start. The thing I love the most is when I sit down with a developer and show them how to exploit a vulnerability, and they're like, wait a minute, this makes sense to me. Cool, I'm a hacker now. I'm like, yeah. And the last one, the takeaway, is just don't be a jerk. Like, I get that feeling all the time when I hack into something, and I just keep it to myself. Like, there's been times when I pop servers at companies I've worked for, and I'm like, yeah, who's the big man on campus? Who? Ah, dope. But keep that to yourself. Don't be a jerk. Don't throw people's mistakes in their noses. It doesn't work for cats. It doesn't work for dogs when they crap on your rug. It doesn't work for developers or engineers or architects either.